exchange of the vote, in the exchange of the vote,
and did we get the
Besigye was the victim. So that's why I would say, if there was no AU elections, Besigye would not have been abducted.
Do you think that this AUC campaigns and elections have really messed up our diplomacy? Because we've really had to give in to some things and probably change a few things that we previously would not have considered.
Remember, you are desperately. Ruto desperately needed the votes from the 54 member states. And for him to get the votes, he had to go by the whims of the electorates. And the electorates here are the presidents. So if he goes to Museveni, Museveni will tell him, yes, for me to assure you Ugandan vote, what am I getting in return? Then he asks, what do you want? I want this Besigye back in my country. And that's exactly what happened. That's why Besigye was abducted, as we in quotes, because in principle there is no way he would have been abducted if there was no cooperation of Kenyan agencies. So Kenyan agencies actually handed him over to the Ugandan authorities for us to get that vote. And definitely there were other countries and other demands. We don't know what exactly was, but in principle, when you are doing campaigns, you have to listen to your voters. So if your voter tells this is what I want, definitely you have to go by that because you need that vote. So Kenya was in that position where the president desperately wanted votes from African member states. And for every member state, there must have been a demand or a request, which is very normal in any campaign. Because when you go to look for votes, for you to get that vote, there's the promise you give. If not a promise, you deliver something on the spot for you to be assured that vote. And that is exactly what happened.
Okay. Now that you, Basil, I know you've worked in quite a number of international organizations, and looking at the headlines focusing on diplomacy in Kenya today, just like the budget-making process, which previously Kenyans never talked about, but last year we came to a reawakening, and now we're talking about the budget-making process. Do you think that diplomacy is also an issue that we will be scrutinizing when it comes to elections, that your diplomatic credentials could mean something to Kenyans?
You mean for
going forward, yeah, for 2027?
Of course, it's important because, as I said, our relation with our neighbors or other countries has positives and negatives. Because if you relate well with your neighbors, you are going to strengthen your bilateral ties and more so economic relations. Remember, Kenya, our interest is to export more than we import. And you cannot grow alone as a country. You need other partners. So any leader who has to be voted in as the next president, the flag bearer of this country, has to have some experience on diplomacy. Because if you don't relate well with your neighbors, then you are going to sink the country economically. Remember, if you talk of East Africa, the population we are talking of, how many millions people? Almost close to a billion, to be precise. I mean, if you put all the East African countries together. And this is a very serious market for this country. But for you to benefit immensely from this, you need to have solid ties. That's why if you are president and you have messed us our diplomatic ties, then definitely that will disqualify you as the next head of state.
Yes. Do you think it should matter if whatever diplomatic decision